So today we're talking about fiduciary. What is a fiduciary? What is the fiduciary responsibility? What are the duties of the fiduciary? And we're talking about it within the context of our practice. Tom and I are both CFP professionals. To become CFP professionals, it's not a right, it's a privilege. You have to pass a bunch of exams, do a lot of studying, have a lot of experience on it. Regardless of all that, once you sign up for that and you are a CFP professional, you now are a fiduciary and you have the fiduciary duty. You owe the fiduciary duty to our clients, which is potentially you. So I'm going to give you the definition as the CFP board defines it. At all times when providing financial advice to a client, a CFP professional must act as a fiduciary and therefore act in the best interest of the client. So that's the whole deal with fiduciary. I have my interests, you the client, you have your interests, then my firm has interests that they're going to, so we all three have sometimes competing interests, but who's the main stage here when you're acting as a fiduciary is the client, which is you. So your interests need to be ahead of everything else but us. So I want to push it to Tom, and I want Tom to share with you, like, why are we talking about fiduciary duty today?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this video because when you're getting advice from a professional, you want to make sure that their interests align with yours, right? When there's a mismatch of interests, that's where things get recommended that are maybe not the right thing for you. You get in the right investment, the right product, whatever it is. And that's where there can be, you can get some bad advice. And so, what we just want to do today is walk you through how we approach this in our practice, how we approach this fiduciary standard. We take it seriously. We need to make sure that your interests are ahead of ours in everything we're doing when it comes to financial advice. And so let me bring up the show notes. You can find these below the link of our video. They're also on our website at cardinalguide.com. We have the board as always. And it is interesting. We get a lot of calls where we do a lot of Zoom calls with clients, and they actually print these boards out so they can study it some. So not a requirement, but just know that you're able to do that. And then the next page on this one is just really more detailed than what we have on the board there. So we'll get back to the board, but if you want to read a little bit more in depth of sort of the points we make on the board, you can find those in our show notes.
So the three duties that we're responsible, any CFP is responsible to the client, is to show the duty of loyalty, the duty of care, and the duty to follow client instructions. So there's more to it than just putting their interests ahead of ours. And this is kind of a breakdown of that. So the duty of loyalty, this has got a lot in there, which is, it's going to start with just a restating of the definition, is to place the interests of the client above the interest of the CFP or the CFP firm. So your interests need to be ahead of our interests. Now, and we have to be able, we owe you that. That's a duty that we adhere to. Now, we need to, beyond that, we're going to have conflicts. There's going to be situations where something serves our interest and it doesn't serve your interest. That's called a conflict of interest. So what we have to do is we have to avoid conflicts wherever possible. So we're always looking for those and just to steer clear of them. But when they can't be avoided, we need to disclose the conflicts. So we need to share with you, like an example of this is our practice. We sell insurance to our clients. And as a CFP, we have a fiduciary duty to you. And so the commission that the agency receives for selling the insurance is a necessary part of the equation, but it is a conflict of interest. So we need to disclose that to you. We need to obtain informed consent. So we need to tell you about it and gain your consent. And then we need to properly manage the conflict. And an example of properly managing the conflict is to make sure that we don't let it be the decision maker over what company we sell you or what product we sell you. It's just something that exists here in the background. We need to keep you and your interest at the top of the equation. So after we get informed consent, we need to act without regard to the financial or other interests of the CFP. So I want to push it to Tom, and Tom wants to give you some first comment on this and then give you an example of how this plays out in the practice here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest way that we see this play out in our practice is with the use of insurance, right? If you watch our channel, you know that we talk a lot about annuities or life insurance or Medicare supplements, whatever it is, any type of insurance policy, there is a commission attached to that. And so there is a conflict that exists there. How we mitigate that and how we sort of minimize that as much as possible is we represent most companies out there, right? So we are out there shopping around to see what is the best deal for you with given your set of situation, and again what makes sense as part of the larger financial plan. And so by doing so, we're able to at least make sure we're getting the right product for you, the right company, the thing that makes the most sense for you. Yes, there's a conflict. We disclose it. We mitigate it as much as possible, but there's no way to exclude it completely. And that's the same across every type of practice, right? Some people who don't even sell insurance, they also have conflicts of interest. And so there are, in every business structure, there will conflicts of interest will arise. And so you just need to work with someone who's managing those the best way possible.
Okay. So the next duty, the duty of care, let's talk about that. So we need to act with care, skill, prudence, and diligence of a prudent professional in light of the client's goals, risk, tolerance, objectives, and financial and professional circumstances. So they should have put this at the beginning, because when a client comes into us, we are laser focused on finding out what their goals are. And a lot of people don't know enough about what's in front of them. They have some of their goals, but so we're going to give them information and work with them to formulate their goals, objectives, their risk tolerance. Some people know clearly what their risk tolerance is when they come into us, and then we're going to help sharpen that up and make sure we understand it. Many people don't. They don't have an awareness because they're going into retirement or preparing for retirement. That their risk tolerance is typically going to reduce, and but not all clients are typical. So we're going to spend some time gauging, go through some exercises to have a complete understanding of your risk tolerance before we make any recommendations. So we need to know your client, know the client, know you, and then once we know you, or in all situations, we need to act with skill and prudence and diligence. So I want to push it to Tom, and I want Tom to talk about where this plays out in our practice.
Yeah, I mean, it plays out in a couple of different areas, right? The first one, like Hans had mentioned, is the first meeting we have with a client when they're coming in. We're sitting down and we're talking about what they want. What are their goals? That is where we start every conversation, because it's hard for us to give good advice if we don't know what the end goal needs to be, like what they're looking for. So we start there. And then when it comes to sort of care and skill and prudence, Hans and I, we both spend a lot of time studying this, right? We're both part of the Ed Slot Master Elite Advisory Group. So we're going twice a year, really intensive studying around the tax laws regarding IRAs and things like that. So that's just one example of a way where we're having to study this to make sure that we know what the changes are. We know how that impacts you. We know which situations apply to you and which don't, right? Because these laws are confusing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of professionals out there that aren't doing that, right? They're not studying this to the same level that we are, and they give bad advice. We see it all the time. And so you need to make sure you're working with someone who not only is looking at your goals, but also has the skill and knowledge to be able to act upon those in the way that, again, that's putting your interest ahead of theirs and puts you in the best situation possible.
Okay. So the next duty we're going to talk about is the duty to follow client instructions. So when a client gives us a clear instruction, we need to follow it. Sometimes clients give us unclear instructions, but when we hear them, we need to stop and we need to drill down around that and just get clear on what their instruction is. Perhaps give them some feedback, or generally we're going to give them some feedback. But in the end, we need to follow it, or we need to be able to show why we didn't follow it. And it's comply with all objectives, policies, restrictions, and other terms of the engagement, and all reasonable and lawful directions of the client. And, lawful is pretty obvious. Sometimes if a client asks us to do something and it's against the law, we're going to tell them that we can't do that. That's pretty simple and clear. And it really doesn't happen that often. But it's the reasonable word. I mean, so if we think something is unreasonable, then we need to have a discussion about that and show how perhaps doing this is not in their best interest. Go through all that. But when we're all said and done, we need to follow their instructions. So I want Tom to talk about how this plays out.
Yeah, we see this one play out more so on the money management side of our business, where we're actually helping invest clients' money. And, sometimes people come in with requests like they might want to buy a certain company, they might want to sell something, and it might be, a tension of sort of what their overall plan said, what the plan laid out. And so part of why they hired us is to push back a little bit, talk about both sides of it, and sort of give our thoughts. But at the end of the day, if they want to do something after they've listened to sort of our thoughts here, our job is to act on that, right? You haven't, this is your money. You can do with it what you want, and our job is to help implement what you want to do. And so it's not just we never. It's not that we never question anything, right? Part of it is we might push back a little bit, but it's never going to be to a point where it's like, no, I'm definitely not doing that. Say, hey, here's another way to look at it. Here's what you might want to consider. But again, at the end of the day, if it's something you want, then our job is to execute that. Again, as long as it's reasonable, as long as it's lawful. Obviously, we're not going to break the law for you. But that again, it puts us at a level where you are in control, and we will act on your behalf.
Okay, so I'm going to show how fiduciary, when we're doing comprehensive financial planning, going over the 7 worries, like with Social Security, it's around the timing of your filing. We're giving you advice of that. We need to show you, and we need to inform you of the result of your decisions. Medicare, it's really all about helping you choose in your interests whether you're going to be better on a Medicare Advantage plan or you're going to be better on original Medicare and a Medicare supplement. And then it gets down to, if you've got pending IRMA is a factor, what you're going to do about all that. We need to be a fiduciary at all times. Long-term care, this is just all around the risks and showing the risk, and being a fiduciary is making a recommendation in your interest, which is whether you need long-term care insurance or not, whether you can get it, which policy type, and we need to be doing that in your interest, not so much as the one we want to sell you. IRA 401k, Tom mentioned going to Ed Slott, studying for hours and hours and days and days and days over years, learning all the IRA rules around, first of all, required minimum distributions, and helping clients understand that they need to distribute this money, and having that from a tax standpoint. That's really all about taxes. And being a fiduciary is, we need to make, again, recommendations that are in your best interest and meet your objectives. Income planning, the same way. We get into guaranteed income streams. We're going to take, in many cases, part of your money in our recommendation is going to go into a guaranteed lifetime income stream, even if you have substantial money. And we need to make sure that when we're offering and selling and writing annuities to people, that we're doing them based upon, as a fiduciary, in the best interest of the clients. And then with estate planning, same thing. I mean, we don't need to be showing life insurance to you just because we want to sell you life insurance and make commissions. We need to be selling you life insurance, offering you, helping you get life insurance because it's in your best interest and in your heirs' best interest to have this money available to them after your passing. So that's what we do in a financial, that's how fiduciary plays out in comprehensive financial planning. I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.